All right, thanks, guys. We got a couple of games I just want to dive in. Most of them not on the board, so just bear with me and listen up, grab a pen. All right, guys. Northern Kentucky takes on Ball State here tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off. Ball State's minus 8.5, totals 134 and a hook. We did see a half a point move toward Ball State and movement downward on the total. Now, Ball State open minus 8, up to minus 8.5. Total open 135, down to 134 and a hook. 53% of the consensus are leaning toward Northern Kentucky, 63% shaded toward the under, and right now the Norse of Northern Kentucky are plus 350 on the money line. Now, Northern Kentucky, they failed to cover in their couple of games away from home this year. Meanwhile, Ball State, 2-0 against the spread when laying the points. So I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Ball State in this spot here. Give me Ball State minus 8.5, getting the job done against the spread. All right, next matchup, Bryant taking on Drexel, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in Philadelphia. Drexel's minus 4, totals 145.5. We did see a half a point move toward Drexel and movement upward on the total. The Dragons open 3.5, up to minus 4. Total open 145, up to 145 and a hook. Right now, Bryant is plus 165 on the money line. Now, the Bulldogs of Bryant, pretty good covering that number on the road this year. 3-0 against the spread away from home. They're also 3-0 against the spread when catching the points. Now, Drexel on the other side, they're 0-2 against the spread when favored. I think this is a pretty good spot for Bryant backers. I'm going to lean toward the Bulldogs of Bryant, plus 4, getting the job done against the spread. All right, next matchup. We actually have it on the board here. It is going to be Princeton taking on Indiana, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. The Hoosiers are minus 18.5, totals 142 and a hook. We saw a half a point move toward Indiana and movement upward on the total. The Hoosiers open 18, up to 18.5, total open 142, up to 142 and a hook. Indiana, 3-1 against the spread when laying the points this year. Princeton, not very good covering the number when traveling. 0-2 against the spread on the road. I'm not even going to buy the hook in this one. I'm going to lean Indiana, minus 18.5, getting the job done against the spread. And before we go ahead and move on, I just want to take a quick timeout and welcome you to the show. Got some lines of personal leans out for Wednesday's college basketball action. Happy hump day to you. The weekend is almost here. It's right around the corner. We are halfway there. Happy hump day once again. Now, before we get into some more free lines of personal leans right here on YouTube, I just want to quickly remind you to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are 9-4 in our last 13 board member package plays. We're also hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. I'll give you more information about that site at the end of the show, but if you want to find out now, all you got to do is click the link in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. All right, let's go ahead and get into some more free lines of personal leans. All starts Eastern Standard Time. And on deck, it's not on the board, but we got Wagner taking on St. Pete's. And that's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. St. Pete's is minus 3.5, totals 128. We saw a half a point fade of St. Pete's and movement upward on the total. Once again, St. Pete's opened minus 4 down to minus 3.5. Total open 127.5 up to 128. Right now, Wagner is plus 160 on the money line. Wagner has failed to cover the spread in all of their games this year. They're also 0-3 against the spread when catching the points by default. Of course, they were catching points in every single game this year. I think this is a pretty good spot for St. Pete's backers at home. I'm going to lean St. Pete's minus 3.5, getting the job done against the spread. Next matchup, a lot of smart guys on the court here. Siena taking on Yale, 7 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. Yale's minus 5.5, total 139 and a hook. We actually saw a 1-point fade of Yale and movement downward on the total. The Bulldogs open 6.5, down to minus 5.5. Total open 141, down to 139 and a hook. Right now, Siena is plus 210 on the money line. Siena is also covered in all of their games when catching the points this year. 3-0 against the spread as the dog. They're also 2-0 against the number as the official road underdog. So with all that said and done, I am going to purchase the half a point in this spot here, but I do like Siena plus 6 getting the job done against the spread. All right, next matchup, Belmont taking on Lipscomb. 7:30 Eastern tip-off in this game. These are the kind of games that are good to know because these are kind of like the fringe teams that end up getting in March Madness as the 12, 13, 14 slot. They end up going against these powerhouses, and a lot of times we'll see one or two upsets. But anyway, Belmont taking on Lipscomb, 7:30 Eastern tip-off in that game. Now, Belmont is -9.5 away from home. Total's at 152 and a hook. We did see a 1-point move toward Belmont and movement downward on the total. Belmont open 8.5 up to -9.5. Total open 153.5 down to 152 and a hook. Right now, Lipscomb is plus 480 for an outright win on the money line. Now, Lipscomb's really struggled against the number in this early season. And as a matter of fact, out of their 3 games, they have not covered once. Meanwhile, Belmont, they're covering 75% of the games when laying the points. So I'm not even going to buy the half a point in this game either. I'm going to lean Belmont -9.5, getting the job done against the spread in that game. All right, 2 more matchups to go. I'm just curious to see. Nope, those are not on the board. But anyway, this is going to be a very fringe game here. You're going to maybe struggle finding this game offered at your book. But I want to dive into this. I'm talking about High Point taking on the University of St. Louis, the Billikens. All right, High Point taking on St. Louis, 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. St. Louis is -22, totals 128.5. We saw a 1-point move towards St. Louis and movement upward on the total. The Billikens open 21 up to -22. Total open 128 up to 128.5. Now, of course, if you never heard of High Point, I really can't blame you. I found out about them last year. I wasn't really familiar with them. But the thing that I do know is they're not good against the number. They have not covered a point spread yet this year. They're 0-4 against the number. And by default, they're 0-3 against the spread as the official road dog. Now, St. Louis has been favored in a handful of games here early in the year. And, of course, they're 3-0 covering the number when laying the points. So I actually, believe it or not, if you're looking for some action or if you're in the St. Louis area and you want some action on the game, I think St. Louis should get the job done. So give me the Billikens, -22, getting the job done against the number in that game. Of course, I'm going to slide my next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Troy taking on Texas A&M, and that's going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern tip-off in that game. The Aggies are -17.5, totals 139 and a hook. We saw a half a point move toward Texas A&M and movement upward on the total. The Aggies open 17 up to -17.5. Total open 139 up to 139 and a hook. Texas A&M struggling against the number in this very short season. They're 0-3 against the number at home. And, of course, they failed to cover in their 2 games when they were laying the points. So I think this is a pretty good spot for Troy backers. I don't think this is going to be a popular play either. I'm not going to buy the hook. I'm just going to go ahead and lead toward the Trojans of Troy, +17.5, getting the job done against the spread. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive into our quick pick recap, brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. I like Troy, +17.5, getting the job done. St. Louis, -22 in that game. Belmont, -9.5, getting the job done. Siena, +6, catching the plus money. Actually, I like Siena, +6 against the spread. I like St. Pete's, -3.5. I like Indiana, -18.5. I like Bryant, +4. And last but certainly not least, I like Ball State, -8.5. All right, let's go ahead and dive into some shout-outs. Once again, brought to you by patreon.com/BrockPage, where we are 9-4 in our last 13 board member package plays. Shout out to Rasul Safri, Ninji Chris, Multi Cushy, Mite Dimitrov, Marcos Lepe, Tom Beasy, The Frozen Gamer, Arnold Eisensmith, Ken Dalwali, and last but certainly not least, shout out to Calico Jones. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Once again, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage, where, like I said earlier, we're 9-4 in our last 13 board member package plays. We're hitting at 65% for the entire college football season on that website. Now, what we do is we offer daily premium plays, daily premium selections on that site, beginning at just $1.99 per month. We have a bunch of different memberships, tiers, and packages that you can subscribe to. And a lot of folks will ask me, what's the difference between Patreon and then your YouTube page, your YouTube channel for that matter? And what I tell them is what we do here on YouTube is we pretty much handicap every single game on the board, both the side and the total. And if you were to bet your hard-earned money on every single game, side and total, especially in professional sports, it's really not a good winning formula for success. You're really going to end up losing a lot of money in the long run because the books are too sharp. They're too smart. They're just really too smart. And the math is always against you. So what we do on Patreon is we really focus in on 3 to 4 premium selections per day. They're games that I personally have action on. They're personal plays of mine. They're high percentage selections. And I'll tell you this much, my current record on Patreon is a lot better. It's a lot more impressive than it is handicapping every single game on YouTube. And you can actually check out my record for free right now. All you have to do is click the link in the description section below. That is patreon.com/BrockPage. But most importantly, guys, I got to thank you for tuning in right here on YouTube. I really do hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. Happy Wednesday to you. Best of luck to you. And I look forward to seeing you on patreon.com/BrockPage.